Hi, and welcome to this week's FCC Kids devotional. Let's think about what happens when we obey or disobey rules. I have some kids on the playground, and they're going to demonstrate some of these on the playground. What are some of the rules for the swings?
Some of the rules for the swing are no doing banana split, no swinging sideways, and no jumping off the swing.
What are some of the rules on this playground?
On our playground, we're not allowed to climb up on the top of the monkey bars, and we're not allowed to throw rocks. We're also not allowed to take our shoes off.
Why is it important to have these rules?
So that we don't get hurt.
What can happen if you don't follow the rules on the playground?
Yeah, one of our rules here is we're not allowed to climb up the slide.
Why is it important to have rules?
Because if you don't stand up with 10 cents to your teacher, you didn't bubble.
Who makes the rules at your school?
My teacher.
Who makes the rules at your house?
You.
Who am I?
Mom.
Rules may not always be fun to follow, but they are important. We're going to learn that we should always obey God and His rules. Our Bible story today comes from 1 Samuel chapter 15. So I'm going to read you 15:1 from 1 Samuel. And Samuel said to Saul, "The Lord sent me to anoint you king over His people Israel. Now therefore listen." After Saul was crowned king, he became very powerful. Unfortunately, King Saul did not always obey God. Listen for what happened when King Saul chose not to obey God's rules. Saul gathered the Israelites to fight the Philistines at Gilgal. Saul waited for Samuel to make sacrifices on the army's behalf, hoping that God would give them victory. After 7 days, the army grew afraid and began to leave Saul's camp. Saul grew impatient and made the sacrifice himself. Samuel arrived and was angry with Saul.
What have you done?
My men were leaving and you didn't come. So I did the sacrifice all by myself.
You have been foolish. If you listened to God, then you would have been established king, but you haven't. God has found a king after His own heart.
Samuel went away from Saul to Gibeah in Benjamin. Saul had only 600 men left in his army.
The Lord sent me to anoint you as king over His people Israel, so listen to what He says. The Lord of armies says, I saw what the Amalekites did to the Israelites when they tried to stop them as they were coming out of Egypt. Now go and attack the Amalekites and completely destroy everyone and everything they have. Destroy them all.
So Saul summoned the Israelites, and they defeated the Amalekites. But Saul's troops spared King Agag. They spared the best sheep, goats, the animals, and the best items. They destroyed the worthless stuff, but kept the best for themselves. God spoke to Samuel.
I regret that I made Saul king because he has turned away from following me and did not do what I said.
So Samuel became angry and cried out to God all night. Early the next morning, Samuel went to confront Saul, but someone told him that Saul went to Carmel to build a monument to himself. When Samuel came to him, Saul said,
What's up, Lord? I did everything you told me.
Then why do I hear sheep, goats, and cattle? The troops brought all the good stuff to make a sacrifice to God.
Samuel confronted Saul's disobedience, but Saul just made excuses. So Samuel said,
Does the Lord enjoy burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as he's seeing you obey him? To obey is better than sacrifice. To pay attention is better than the fat of rams. Rebellion is like fortune telling, and defiance is like wickedness and worshiping idols. Because you rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you as
tried to beg for Samuel's forgiveness and begged him to show the soldiers that God was still with him. But Samuel turned to leave. Saul gripped his robes and they tore. So Samuel said,
The Lord has tore the kingdom from you today and has given it to your neighbor who is better than you. The Eternal One of Israel does not lie or change his mind, for he is not a man who changes his mind.
Samuel dealt with Saul's disobedience and went home to Ramah and mourned over Saul, though he never saw him again. Because of his disobedience, God regretted making Saul king. God had done his part. God helped his people defeat the enemy army. However, King Saul had not done his part. He had not obeyed what God wanted him to do. Saul tried to save some of the good things for himself. When Samuel came to talk to Saul, Saul lied and blamed others for what had been done. That was another way Saul disobeyed God. Then Samuel told Saul that someone else would be named king. Saul learned that it's always best to obey God.
I will listen to what God the Lord says. He promises peace to his people, his faithful servants. Psalm 85:8. This is why we don't do this. The reason why we don't do the reason why we have rules so that if we get up here we don't hurt. If we don't fall and hurt ourselves. Who cares about rules? Like that. No.
Yeah.